Hello and welcome to a brand new week of broadcasting on Enterprise TV. It's Enterprise Morning this morning, and I'm Cyril Abaku welcoming you to the program. In the meantime, I'd like to urge you to follow us on all our social media handles at Enterprise TV 7. Do not forget to like and subscribe to our page on YouTube. It's Enterprise TV 7. And of course, our website is www.enterprisetvnews.com. This morning, to begin the show, we would like to start with taking a look at what the newspaper headlines are saying before we head into our main conversation. I have the pleasure of having sit with me in the studio, Mr. Okunade, accountant, public affairs analyst, to help us make sense basically of what the headlines are saying. Good morning, Mr.
Good morning, Cyril, and let me say good morning to all our viewers this morning. A very bright, cool morning to start the week.
You can say that again. So we begin with our first newspaper offering. It's from The Guardian. This one says, I have to say, by the way, that all the newspaper headlines are basically very gloomy and bleak. They offer little by way of hope, but nonetheless, let's take a look at them. The Guardian says, scepticism over inflation, insecurity, economic outlook. Scepticism over inflation, insecurity, and economic outlook. One wonders why week in, week out, day in, day out, we seem to have one headlines that offer very little by way of hope. Now this is saying there's widespread skepticism in the land. People are bothered about inflation, insecurity, and economic outlook. What do you?
Yeah, thank you very much.
What are the indices for you?
Yeah, they are, and sincerely speaking, it's something that is quite worrisome. I came back over the weekend from Abuja, and you can see the tension in the land with the level of insecurity. Yeah. Those days we used to have it when we travel. You can stay out till like 11, 12, and calm yourself down, at least out of your state, to really have good time. But I remember most of my guys I went to see like Olusesan. We just had to stay back, and by 8 we need to just be indoor. And it's to tell you that most of the time those are periods where you can broker out deals after having work during the day.
Abuja suburbs. You're talking of Abuja main town.
It's the main town. I was at the main area in Abuja, I would say, where those things. So people were really, really, really scared of moving out. So you can imagine, how do you expect businesses to move? And it's no longer an issue of attacking at night. It's now a day thing. Someone was telling me of the scenario of one of their staff that was actually attacked in his house, picked the husband, the wife, the children. They released the wife and asked the wife to go and actually sell some of their property to come out and say this thing. So when you look at the level of insecurity that we have, there is tension, there is fear within everyone moving out. You are driving and you're looking left and right, is a car chasing you, and that one is there. And when you talked about the other aspect of inflation, there is something that is really not working out. We are not producing anything, and I'm sure you all know that that's a major problem. We are so much import dependent in everything we do, even to the level of toothpick that you are use.
But the question is, in the economy, because the story says skepticism over inflation, insecurity, the economic outlook itself, is Nigeria making any gains economically, domestically speaking, manufacturing, innovation, the markets, and so on?
I don't want to sound pessimistic, but it's no. I'm sure you can see that majority of the multinationals are exiting the country, and you ask yourself, it's not really good sense. If you are going out to say you are bringing in FDIs and those, I always use the approach of we auditors. If I must take over work from you or come into your terrain, the question is, how are you doing? And that's the way a businessman does. I need to ask the question, if I must venture into the business you're doing today, the first question is, Siri, you've been in this space for a little while. What are your gains? Then I must have seen an attraction, possibly seeing your growth. And on that perspective, I can come and say, okay, let me to break the monopoly of what you're enjoying and share out of the market share. But you discover that when people are exiting, you need not to ask questions, most of the time the foreigners that we are actually approaching for some of these FDIs are laughing at us because they look at the level of insecurity, they look at the level of inconsistency in our policy, and they ask themselves, is that the way to go?
Yes.
Is
it worth it?
No.
When we talk to them, they way of doing their own research and checking out things, whether they are.
Your talk is different from what they will do. They make their independent research and they go deep down.
So the president was at G20, and then the talk was that Indian people were coming to invest $14 billion, $16 billion dollars in the economy. He was at a conference in France. We were told that Swiss investors were all over him. Sometimes we're now beginning to ask, were these things arranged to give us those news headlines, or they were just false, or I mean, if they keep being said and they are not being done, something is not right.
I would say they are not false. The major issue there is that their response to the president is quite apt. They see, if you have opportunity to travel, every foreigner wants to come to Nigeria. Why? You have all the indices that can make your business to grow. The population is there, so there is market share. Irrespective of anything you're bringing, the market is there for you. Two, when you talk about access to raw material, anything you want to produce, we have it here. A lot of people even take some of the raw materials and take to their country to see how they developed on it. When we talked about human capital, we have it at large. The intellectual is there. Even if it is the unskilled labor that you need, everything you can get there, they are there in abundance. We give you cheap labor.
Nigerian spirit.
In us, the fighting, the resilience that we have in us, you can be guaranteed that your business will not actually grow down. But when you look at the policy that the government is actually given to enhance the business delivery, it's not there. Because the environment is not smiling, you see an average Nigerian that want to cut corners. Corruption pervades everywhere. The regulators are not doing all that is expected to sustain the business. So those are the major things that I feel that we need to do. And every other factor are actually perfect.
And with all these gaps in place, nature does not abhor vacuum. So corruption comes in, all kinds of things begin to manifest. Let's take a look at some other headlines before we go to the next page, right? Still on the Guardian, this one says, court orders CBN to release MTN's funds repatriation details. Another one says, leadership orders for opposition parties mega structure. About 50 billion properties lost in Ibadan explosion as government ends rescue operation. Niger Delta youths to short flow stations, cut crude oil output. Theft drops by 82% as $1.2 billion OML-17 production hits 40,000 barrels per day. Then, I think these are basically the stories. The last one is Falana urges states to abolish pension payment to ex-governors. Besides stories, some of these stories not really being optimistic or painting a good picture, you can't even find, I don't know if you've noticed this, but in the past, let's say, roughly 8 or 9 years, there is even no serious debate or agenda in public space for us to talk about. We are talking about the same things. There's no serious discussion topic that tends to elevate the type of public discourse to a whole new level, new ideas. Maybe that again has to do with our politics. Now about 50 billion worth of us is gone, but we are not sure whether the government will do anything to review them or help the people or whatever it is.
It's part of what I'm saying, that when you look at our policies, the policies that the government are actually changing out, it's part of what an individual will tell you, that those that lost their houses in Ibadan, they do not have guarantee. Do we have this policy for emergency stuff where you can say, if those houses are not insured, I can tell you, if, let's take for example, we land over 200 and something houses as we speak are really not in good shape anymore. So you can be guaranteed that government that cannot produce housing for its citizens, will they be the one to go ahead and rebuild over 250 something houses? So you can be sure. And when you even make the attempt, if the number one citizen of that state have the sincerity to cap that out, there are enough open door for corruption. The major thing you see several people doing is to rebuild those things and divert those houses to be their personal wherever and resell to people at high cost. These are a lot of loopholes that we've seen, and the income. That's why day by day you consider that the trust deficit on the part of
continues to widen.
It keeps widening out.
Let me quickly just go in there. On the nation, there are just about 3 stories on the front burner because somebody has bought over the wraparound, that is the front page of the paper. The 3 stories say, 1, kidnapped sisters, our ordeal in 19-day captivity. We won't get to that because that's our main discussion topic. The other one says, NSA, Ribadu, leads Ibadan blast probe. And then the banner line says, Jimo mobilizes Ondo for APC. That's the commercial story that is. So, but let's go to the first 2 stories. Kidnapped sisters, okay, we won't talk about it because it's coming in our main conversation. NSA, Ribadu, leads Ibadan blast probe. Now, that's what we're talking about before I... The question I was asking is, Mr. Delalaki, Minister for Solid Minerals, has come to say that government is waiting for the outcome of
the investigation.
I'm not sure if they've arrested anybody so far. But the question is, government didn't know that people are storing explosives in such a high-brow residential area. So people have come to allege that police normally escort those when they're bringing their consignment into that house. But the matter in question is, if all of this has been going on, and government will know the true picture when we also know, isn't that a recipe for anarchy and disaster? I thought intelligence services ought to know. I mean, things that could take lives and have been moved into the resolution. Shouldn't the just have known this? Shouldn't somebody have picked this up somewhere?
Cyril, I'll take it from 2 sides. You see, when the government are not responsible for you, you try as much as possible to take the responsibility of the government and make things up, at least to protect your life. When it comes to the security of lives and property, I always say it's not only the responsibility of the government. We have a role to play. Up till now, I've actually been asking the question, do we have any reports from those residents in the area that are actually coming out to say police escort some of those materials out there? Do we have any written document before anyone? Because when you submit such, you expect to have an acknowledgement copy, at least to have a publication from people to say, sir, government, we have actually raised this question, but there is no response, so that we can be indicting the security apparatus to say, it is not you being reactive to issue. How proactive are we? So when it comes to security agency escorting some of these things, I have my reservation about that, because most of the uniforms you have out there are actually being sewn by individual. And apology to that. A lot of people you see are up there, ex-service people, still wearing the uniform, all because they want to make ends meet, sit in front of vehicles that will take the things from here to another state.
You wonder the way Nigeria works.
Those are part of the problem. And when things are down and you make investigation, you discover that that particular person was actually dismissed from police force and it's there seated in front. I don't know, when you leave a private organization, there are certain things they will ask you to drop. Your ID card, your uniform, if they have given something, everything belonging to the organization. But here we see some of these expelled or men coming in front of vehicles seated, wearing, the police force uniform to actually. Each time I ask myself the question, you see people moving bag of rice as the police officer in front, and you say, how do you now protect? We are talking of shortage of personnel to protect us, but if you have 10 trailers of rice, the rest of the
people moving house, just carrying maybe one chair
and feeding. A police officer is in front, seated, so that when you stop them on the way, they can say no.
Market men will go to buy pawpaw, oranges, and pineapples. There's a policeman in there.
So that's why I keep saying that some of those people might not be serving police officers, but because there is a lacuna. We've asked, if you encourage that, a lot of individuals, if you have the money, for yourself, you can get police escort. And you say, we are short of personnel. You see 10, 20 people, and the police tends towards, serving some of those individuals that we talk. So for me, I'm talking to IG this day to see how much we can look into the police force. Enough of this atmosphere of police officers sitting in front of a vehicle that is carrying pepper and anything that is. if we find such thing, why are you protecting them? And you are not protecting the citizen that you are meant to actually protect them, but you can protect goods because somebody can pay for the service. And we all know that security is the activity, is a primary activity of the government that we need not to pay. But what we've seen of late is that they will rather offer the service to those that can pay for it. You have 10, 5 police escort following just an individual. Just an individual. You see an Hilux in front, an Hilux at the back. And you ask yourself, are these one government functionaries? The answer is no. So for me, it's something that is really, and that's why I have my reservation that the issue of insecurity may not come down in no distance now, because we seem to be misprioritizing what we're doing. We give more to those that can actually pay for the security to protect them and expose individuals. And I want to say this finally on this, by the saying, it should be a lesson across board. If you see something, say something. But most people will tell you that even if you see something and you say something, are the law enforcement agency ready to actually act on it? I will always say, don't go there and use your mouth to say it. Document and have an acknowledgement copy of such things, so that when things as evident, when such thing happen, nobody will say, no, we are not aware, because your words against my words, we can change things. But when those things are in black and white, I'm sure you can bring that out, and somebody will not go ahead and manufacture stamp. It must be an acknowledgement that we go have the BPO and some other things.
Things you don't put on paper anyway.
Yeah,
It's basic human nature. We've seen it happen over and over again. Let's now go to the last paper for the day, which is daily trust. This is quite a contentious issue. Arewa Consultative Forum rejects relocation of CBN fan offices. Mobilizes top northerners against moves. That's the first story. The second one says, Nabia sisters, freedom. Police, family disagree. The other story is 16 passengers die in Zaria, Kano highway crash. That's chilling. And the last story says, electricity subsidy. Federal government pays over 5 trillion naira in 10 years. But let's come to this main topic for discussion. That is from Daily Trust. The banner liner says, ACF rejects relocation of CBN fan offices. Is the president trying to play hardball?
I don't think he's playing hardball. You see, we need to get the major content. We are not really,
Sorry,
they are not.
When I mean hardball, because now the narrative is, fan is given that they're moving the HQ back to Lagos. But for the CBN, the argument wasn't initially about moving HQ, or at least that's how it was presented.
Yeah.
A week later now, we are hearing that this is moving like the spinal cord of the whole CBN to Lagos. So because this is, it's been turned into a matter of the president versus the North. That's a very critical.
Yeah, that's the way. I initially, even when I heard about it, and I decided to read into it for CBN, I think it's a branch supervision and maybe
the congestion of the headquarters.
Headquarters, because they consider
but
that a lot of people.
Functions that are being moved to Lagos.
Yeah.
Will render Abuja to be a shadow of what the CBN really should be.
Well, I don't understand, but the main CBN governor is still in Abuja. So where the head is where the power resides. So if you're saying that you are moving certain, they must have done their due diligence. Ask me. It's not the prerogative of the president. I'm sure it's something that was tabled before them convincingly. That's why it's signed to it that those people should be moved to Lagos. And I don't know, well, people will have it because it's from Lagos and they seem to be Lagos. But those things were here before now. And I will always be saying, I always say that this idea of saying a lot of things should be, residual in Abuja, we should do just the same way I keep telling individuals that why do we have a lot of head office in VI, putting so much pressure on people going to Ireland every day, when you can have your offices in locations like this, come to the mainland, go to Agbara, go to all those areas, and make your headquarters to be anywhere. What you want is that people can access it. In fact, bringing your headquarters there, it's on its own. You are going to revive that particular area and attract, businesses to come into that particular. So I've asked Lagos State, can we decongest VI? and make sure that some of these headquarters, what actually are they doing on the island that is so attractive that they cannot do on the mainland or have their HQ on the mainland? If it is insecurity, can you tackle it? Of which I don't think it is. There are a lot of vast land, moving here. Between Lagos and Ogun State, there are areas of land that we can actually work on. People develop their HQ there and reduce the pressure. Every now and then we keep, resurfacing, repairing Third Mainland because the pressure up there, and we are talking of, again, constructing Fourth Mainland Bridge. And I ask myself, why do we put all the power to the island and we are not actually concentrating on the mainland where a lot of the middle class actually reside? You can do that in such a way that you bring the proximity of the people that are working for you to your HQ or to the branch office that we're talking about. Same, I think, is obtainable here. Bringing those things to Lagos, as far as I'm concerned, is really not an issue of ethnicity. But the only thing that we understand here is that any policy, any approach, even if it has good intention behind the scene, the correlation is always after ethnic issue. Somebody is trying to actually take power from, or who owns the power? It's about Nigeria and not about an ethnic section. Coming to say that you are raising high power network people to actually contest what the president is saying, I don't think it's the way to go. Why don't you give the room for the president? Because people bringing this policy must have convincingly talked to the president to say, don't forget that CBN was actually saying a lot of the activities of the last board was not what they are supposed to be doing. Yeah. That they want to concentrate more on what CBN are actually set for, which is in terms of regulation. So maybe those operations that is actually distracting, the activity of CBN are what are saying that you go to Lagos, we have good offices out there or other regions. Let's concentrate on the core service of CBN right from the center, which is Abuja.
I actually wouldn't mind. I mean, as a person, one would think that, like you have in other countries, the central monetary regulator couldn't be elsewhere other than the commercial capital of a country.
Yeah.
Because there's proximity to those you're regulating.
Yeah.
And it's also a way of saying we're decentralizing, like we're talking about Victoria Island and the mainland, decentralizing the pressure on one particular city. So making sure that these things are where they ought to be. There's no law that says the CBN of a country cannot be
in the east or anywhere.
And so I think that again is the problem. People are feeling that, look, it's in our territory. Why are you moving it away from our territory?
But it was somewhere before it was moved to that particular area. So I think we should play more of this ethnicity role and let's talk holistically as a nation. What is the value in some of the things that you're bringing? Not about what is going to favor me. If they are taking it away from your territory, it was somewhere before. Everything used to be in Lagos before it was moved to Abuja. And Lagos still remained the commercial hub of the country. So let's continue to see how we can develop other areas. Mine is that rather than even bringing it to Lagos, can we look at other states where some of this gain can actually go and use, because there is no, once you attract maybe a particular group of businesses, it develops the area. It's just like setting up schools in a remote area. Be rest assured that the hostel, people will go there, develop hostel, develop a lot of things. People that are selling in there, they can bring it. So we should start looking at approach of decentralizing power, always from the central. And that's why we always say Lagos State should look at ways of decongesting VI. The pressure that people face on daily basis going to island should be minimized by making sure that you can have, maybe you start taxing those headquarters that you have on the island more and make those that are on the mainland to pay less. So that can be an an incentive for them to come develop some of the areas that we have on the mainland, and we can be better off for it as a nation.
All right, it's on this note that I'd like to thank you, Mr. Okunade, for being our guest on the newspaper review segment of Enterprise Morning this morning. I like a point you made earlier about, you didn't put it in those words, but it's like saying moving away from a political CBN to a purely monetary policy
regulating CBN. Thank you very much for having me, and I wish our viewers the very best of the day.
It's a pleasure. All right, so but I would like to constrain to step back for our second segment. When we return, Nabia's sister's freedom, police and family disagree on how it all went down. Stay with us.